All right, Greg, I got to be honest with you, man. I didn't think the NFC South was going to have this fascinating of a draft. Like, I remember before the draft, you hopped on the show, and I was like, yeah, the Falcons will draft Dallas Turner. They need an end. It's fine. And away we go. And obviously, that's not what happened. The Atlanta Falcons stealing all of the headlines, at least at the top of this draft. They draft Michael Penix Jr., number 8 overall. I gave him the lowest grade in this draft. I gave him a D because, look, and it's not a knock on Penix. It's not a knock on the idea of trying to hit a home run at quarterback. But why did you have to do both, Greg? Why, if you thought you were going to draft a quarterback 8th overall, and we know that the combine happened weeks before free agency. So if the Falcons were as in love with Michael Penix Jr. as they say, why is Kirk Cousins in Atlanta on a $200 million contract? Can you help me? You've had a few days to process it. Can you help me make sense of any of it?
I still don't really understand it. You could have one or the other, but to have both, they've tried to rationalize it as, hey, this is the quarterback of our present. This is the quarterback of our future. But normally you don't put your biggest resources into both. And any success Michael Penix has the next 2 years is going to be at the expense of Kirk Cousins. So, I think across the board, there's no draft pick that's more thoroughly criticized, misunderstood, just baffling for those of us that look at these things with the critical eye. I think Michael Penix could end up being a great quarterback. I just don't know that it had to shake out the way it did. I don't even know. Even if they wanted Michael Penix, I don't know if they had to get him at 8. They could have traded down. We saw that 6 quarterbacks went in the top 12. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know that very many people in our business had Penix ahead of JJ McCarthy. So, it's one of those where, for Atlanta, if you look across the board, I'm looking at aggregate grades on 20 different sites that gave grades to NFL teams, and the Falcons are the worst of the lot. Across the board, very few people support it, and very few people get it.
The crazy thing to me is, and look, if Michael Penix Jr. becomes an all-pro, then the Falcons can laugh forever and they can make all the social media posts making fun of all of us. But the crazy thing is, even if he works out, I still will think this was silly, because if he does work out, then you wasted all of that money and that contract. That was money you could have spent helping Michael Penix. Like, people bring up the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs identified Mahomes, and after 1 year, they were able to trade Alex Smith and get out of that contract. This isn't a contract you can move for 2, if not 3 years. Like, you're, for lack of a better word, stuck with both of these guys for probably half of Michael Penix's rookie deal. Even if it works out in the big picture, this is always going to seem strange to me in the here and now.
Yeah, and the hardest thing for me is that Michael Penix is the same exciting, promising quarterback that he was March 1 before you gave $100 million to a different quarterback. So for this to happen, if there had been like a regime change, you'd say, oh, okay, new coach, new GM, they probably don't like Cousins as much as the guy that wrote that big check. No, it's the same people. So this is one of those where, I look at the franchise and I think they obviously recognized they didn't do a good job of planning for life after Matt Ryan, and are just now getting to the point where they have a suitable replacement for someone that they had a great run with in Atlanta. This is the opposite. This is now, we want to have a replacement in place for Kirk Cousins before he's even taken a snap. And he's going to feel the weight of a much younger, probably more exciting quarterback in his rearview mirror for every snap he takes in Atlanta. And instead of that being one of the feel-good stories, I think, couple days ago, we were all talking about Atlanta as winning the offseason and one of the most improved teams in the NFL, team to beat in the NFC South by the odds makers. And now it's like, boy, they're going to have some real fun figuring out the chemistry of these two quarterbacks coexisting and how they handle things if one gets hurt or if one struggles and doesn't win right away. It's a challenge, especially for a guy that's basically a first-year head coach. Raheem's done this before, but it's been a while since he's been in a position to make these kind of chemistry management decisions.
The Falcons didn't draft Dallas Turner, but they did address their defense. I think their next 4 picks were all on the defensive side of the ball. They trade up for Clemson defensive tackle Ruka Rororo. No disrespect to any of those guys. Maybe they can immediately contribute to this Falcons team, but Penix is going to be the headline with the Falcons for the foreseeable future. All right, let's kick it over to your local team down in Tampa, who I loved the Buccaneers draft as well. I gave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers an A. I think it's because I love Graham Barton. The first round pick looks like an immediate plus starter, probably at center. But you also look at this Jalen McMillan, the Washington receiver. I think there's good value there. Getting Bucky Irving as a running partner for Rashad White. I think Tampa Bay is one of those teams that after re-signing a lot of vets in free agency, I think they added quite a few contributors. This is a team that looks like they got better for the short term immediately.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I thought the draft lined up really well for them, where they got their needs to match up the obvious talent that was there. They didn't trade. It's the first time in 11 drafts for Jason Licht. He hasn't traded during the draft. I thought they kind of stuck to their guns and got some really good players. You know, the Bucs can kind of be all over the place sometimes, going small school, going obscure schools. And for the most part, they kind of played the hits. You got Georgia, you got Alabama, you got Washington in there, to Washington. I mean, they got, it's one of those things where Graham Barton, I didn't think he'd be there at first for them at 26. So for him to be there, we kind of all thought center would be that primary need for them. Edge might have been next on the list. And Chris Braswell from Alabama is a guy that's an athletic freak, has played behind two of the best in college football in Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. They kind of took advantage of some places that have amazing depth at one position and took the guys that have been obscured and hidden behind elite talent. Jalen McMillan's the same way. To be the third Washington Huskies receiver off the board and still be a third round pick, they really like what he can do as a high volume playmaker. Obviously not Rome Odunze, but right there with Jalen Polk is another playmaker that obviously was a big part of Michael Penix's success in Washington this past season.
My only question about the Bucs, they got Chris Braswell, the Alabama edge rusher, in the second round. That seems like a natural replacement for Shaq Barrett. Yaya Diaby had a nice season last year, but for as much as Todd Bowles likes to get pressure and create pressure, do you feel like there's enough there, even with a second round pick in the mix?
I think so. It's one of those, they really liked their depth last year. So there's guys that you barely have heard of. They signed Randy Gregory, who's not a huge high dollar guy, but will probably be their second or third rusher. Joe Tryon-Shienka is a guy who was a first round pick. He's probably a rotational player for them. So there's not a single guy you'd point to besides Diaby that's probably in line for a 10-sack season. But I do think they're going to have ways, just 5, if not 6 guys they can rotate in and use in creative ways at outside linebacker and get the same plays just from a lot of different places. Marquise Watts is a guy that was an undrafted rookie last year. They really liked him. He's probably their 5th outside linebacker. So, I mean, they like their depth. And I think the best way to show that is not going crazy and just taking a second round pick and just taking a mid-range free agent like they did with Randy Gregory.